Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we're here today to talk all things Abaddon's Gate. It's the third book in the Expanse series, and we're here with the crew. So always thankful and grateful that you're all able to make it all over the world. So it's wonderful. So, Robyn, you want to kick us off with introductions?
Oh yeah, sure. I'm in the top space now. Sure. Yeah, Robyn from Bookends and Biscuits, YouTube channel where I talk about mostly sci-fi with a sprinkling of fantasy and crime as well.
And I'm Layla Goshi. I'm a professor of English, also a big reader and a writer. I'm currently teaching creative writing this semester, so lots more fun reading to do this semester as well. And you can find me on Twitter for now.
For now,
Cool.
For now.
Chris.
Yeah, my name is Chris. I've got a YouTube channel where I talk about books and movies and whatever I really fancy at the time. It's very much a place for me to get rid of a lot of positive or negative feelings about things that I'm consuming or otherwise. But yeah, good fun.
Nice. And thank you all for being here. I know it's always great when we can keep meeting. Keep organizing and keep meeting and keep gathering for these discussions. I really appreciate it. And this one was a kind of a tough one for me. I don't know what you all think. I want to hear your thoughts. I know a little bit about Chris because we talked a little bit on Tuesday with the House of the Dragon stream, but I wanted to
Hmm.
hear from Robyn and Layla what you thought about this one, just in general.
Um, I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it. Um, I think it strayed into some philosophical, metaphysical ideas that I thought were interesting. Um, and I kept looking for like the answer, but I think they were really going more uh, uh, toward raising questions, about how will religions change, or how will faith leaders handle the discovery of extraterrestrial intelligence, and yeah, and some other ideas too. But overall, I liked it.
I was, I don't know, about halfway through, I was like, nothing's happened. No one's where they're meant to be. What's going on? And then all of a sudden, everything happened. So actually, overall, I did enjoy it, but it was a lot. It was a lot slower than the other ones. So I did still enjoy it. I think it was really good. I think it had a little bit of a middle book syndrome, a little bit. But I enjoyed the philosophical side of things. I thought that was really interesting, and it was always fun to ask why and what questions that would throw up. It was also slightly odd that most of the majority of the book you're talking to characters that aren't part of the main group. So I thought that was quite fun. But it did feel fresh. I think after the first two being quite similar, it was quite refreshing to have something that was a complete new kind of idea and story. So yeah, I was a little bit split on this one, but overall I did quite enjoy it. So
I actually wrote
Chris.
that down. I wrote that down. Nothing actually happens. That's in my notes. I thought, this book's not good. I think this book's a complete mess for large portions of it, like utterly. But it's so thematically rich, and I love thematically rich books, and it's sort of my favorite so far as well. Like I
Hmm.
think the actual writing and the structure and all that kind of stuff. Oh my god! They even tried it again in the TV series. I went back and watched it because they changed so much because it obviously didn't really work here. But all of the questions like Layla's talking about, it's I couldn't wait for this chat because I think there's so much to talk about in this book.
Oh, interesting. I don't know if it's because I saw the TV series, but I
Mhm.
saw what was going to happen a mile away. There was no. It's probably because I've seen the
Mhm.
series, but I you know what's going to happen. I mean, you can kind of see it coming. I did enjoy the questions it raises and the thoughts. It's funny because there's long stretches of nothing and of
Mhm.
characters that we you can kind of tell have the red shirt syndrome that aren't going to be around very long.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you kind of know this person won't be around very long. But there's these questions that are peppered in there that are really interesting and make you think. There's a few quotes I have written down that I thought were really thought provoking. But overall, it seemed a little like a. I think I really missed Eva Sorella in this one. I really
Yeah.
missed her presence and that that different perspective. And Holden, I think, redeems himself a little bit. A little bit. He still makes some really goofy decisions, but I think, like Chris said, I think the interesting parts of these are the questions it raises, and I think it does raise questions. Just you can, it's more of a thought provoking. What would happen if, or how would we deal with this? And I think that makes it. I think they did that really well to where it's not preachy or what we should think about. It was just it raises questions and for discussions like this to talk about it. So I appreciated that about it.
Absolutely.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to have a really stupid question, which apologies. I wanted to get it out of the way right up the front, which was, are you guys in or out of the romance by this point? Did you prefer the romance in this book between Holden and that, or were you guys still out for it? Chris, not a fan. Still.
I still don't get it.
In this book.
Wait, what I will say about it, like you do raise a good point there, because the story and the three perspectives lacks something bringing them together. It's like every chapter you read, the action's happening somewhere else. You know, you're watching it from Melba's point of view or Callista's point of view, and she's kind of talking about stuff that's happening on another ship, and it just feels like the whole book is like that. So, like, the cohesion of the Naomi Holden thing would have helped, but like that bit, what is it, about 5 chapters before the end, where he thinks he's going to die and he's thinking about what he's going to say. I thought that was terrible. I like you.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. He's like, I like you.
I mean, it's sort of in keeping with what I think of him as a character. He'd have this like 4 or 5 pages of thought, and then he'd say, I like you.
What exactly was the question about him? What was your question again?
Oh, sorry. I was just asking a joke question, really, which was because we haven't really enjoyed the romance in the first 2 books. So I just wanted to know if you'd preferred it in this one. That was all.
Oh.
Yeah, it's they still seem like an odd couple. It still seems a little bit I don't know, not too convincing, but it was okay. I think we're starting to get more attached to them just because we're spending so much time with them. But I'm not worried at all about any of them, about the main crew. So I don't think anything will really happen to them. Maybe I'll be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but so.
It lacks that bit of jeopardy, doesn't it? In certain aspects that you kind of go, okay, like you say, the red shirt syndrome and all that. You kind of can tell who's the temporary people that are there and who are going to be here to stay.
I didn't, because this one actually I did feel was a tiny bit grittier. I feel like there was a little bit more jeopardy in this one. I think I even got taken aback at one of the deaths. I mean, some of them obviously you saw, but one of the deaths particularly, I was just like, oh, I did not see that coming at all. So I thought this one was a little bit more gritty on that side of things and a little bit more perilous, if that's the word, on it, because specifically, I don't know, we'll talk about it now, but when near the end of the book, where you see the security officer get shot immediately off the bat, I was just like, oh, I did not see that happening so quickly, and how Anna's is it Anna? Yeah, Anna's reaction to that. That was the one bit where I was like, oh, okay, gosh, that was a bit unexpected for me on that side of things. But maybe I'm just, I don't know, a bit more naive to death. I'm not sure on that front.
It was definitely written to be shocking because it just preceded that with Serge. It was shot. It was busy talking about how he was telling Bill how it was all going to be no problem. He was going to go in and sort it out, and it was got no problem. And literally, the first encounter he comes to, his head gets blown back off. And you go, ooh. So things aren't going to be okay. It's not going to be straightforward. It's not going to be. They're just going to walk in and take control back of the ship.
Yeah, but it wasn't. I think it was just the fact that there was no it wasn't a back and forth gun battle or a quick line or anything else. It was just the fact that it was just like bam, done, and that was it. I just thought that was done quite well because I was like, oh gosh, it's serious sort of thing.
It made me sit up, and take notice of it. It was, in fact, I actually reread that whole section twice because it was kind of satisfying, and in a way because, like I said, I had written down nothing really happens, and there we had something that really did happen,
What'd you think, Layla? Was this one a little darker for you? A little more
Um,
perilous?
I really think it was more. We're getting more into moral complexity now because when Miller shot the executive, in one of the previous books, James Holden was so just outraged over that. But now we've got like Carlos. What did he do? He spaced a guy without trial. Because he was head of security. But then he turns around and saves the world, in a later part of the story. And I half expected them to somehow say, oh, well, we need Clarissa for this reason. So, all the people she's killed, we're going to forget about that. I don't know why. I just kind of had that thought for the book. Now I know I can't quite remember how it turned out in the show, but if I recall, there was a different outcome for her, and I was disappointed. My biggest disappointment was that we never saw Clarissa and her father like some kind of response because she did all of this for her father. Maybe, of course, they didn't want to inform him as he's sitting there in prison that his daughter's out here, out there causing all that trouble. But I just felt like I'm missing closure from that. And maybe that is still yet to come as well. So that was, those are a couple of things I think that are still outstanding that did bother me about it. But I think we're getting more into that, you're a good guy here, but you're a bad guy here type of thing, or girl. And I think that's, I have read ahead a little bit, and I think, and even from what we've seen so far, I think that's going to be the whole, the idea that you're good in some cases and you're seen as breaking the law in the other cases. So how do we factor all that together?
And we are doing full spoiler. So anybody watching, if you haven't read the book, I'm about to spoil a death because I think I know which death Robyn's talking about. When there was one death that would really surprise me was Sam. That one I didn't see coming. I thought she'd be around for a while, so that was surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, that puts some natural because that was a character we've had before. She's been in all of the books so far, I think. And obviously she's very close to Naomi, so she was a named character almost sort of thing. So you had a bit of a background and thought process, and she's always come across quite nicely. So yeah, that was I was quite shocked about that as well. So
because they even kind of played with a love interest for Alex and Amos with her in the previous book as well, and then kind of thought there might be something in that. But obviously not anymore.
I think it wasn't a love interest so much as a potential conquest, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty much right. They caught their eye,
those
kind of things, yeah. But I did think it was interesting that obviously the Melba Clarissa character, it's the first real point of view we've had of a bad person, from the book, and having that kind of presented to you to say, oh, this is uncomfortable to read because you see the maniacal nature and you see actually the horrible things that she does, especially with Ren but I think that works quite well because it does haunt her the same way as it haunted you when you read it. The kind of cold nature of it had to happen, and then it pervades throughout the entire book. Because she keeps on referring to, in her kind of twisted memory, as Ren as a friend still, even though she brutally murdered him.
Right.
And Brandy mentions I did think all the New Mexican references, and I did like all the New Mexico references and lingo. It is cool that he's a local author for us. Yeah, I didn't realize one of these authors lives close. I think in Santa Fe, so it's close to us. But we went to a local bookstore and it said local author, and the Expanse series is on the shelf, and I thought I didn't realize they lived so close. But reading this, they talk about Hatch, Green Chili, and there's Alamogordo is a city here, so they do mention. I appreciated those little mentions. That was kind of neat.
These kind of things are cool.
Hello. And Legends of the Brave Bard dropping in before supper to show some support. Have a great stream. Thanks for coming by. Yeah, so lots of moral complexity. I think, Layla, you hit that one on the head. That's the most interesting part of this, and the questions it raises. There was one that I thought was really interesting, and there's little things peppered in there, but there was one that I had tabbed on page 230 of this copy. It's that humans only have so much emotional energy. No matter how intense the situation or how powerful the feelings, it's impossible to maintain the heightened emotional state forever. Eventually, you just get tired and want it to end.
Yes, yeah. Actually, I have to say that this is the first book where I'm not a tabber, I'm not a highlighter, I don't do any of that. This is the first book where there were several sections where I was like, oh, I'd like to flag that to go back to. And actually, I thought that was a very similar one. And it's a seemingly true statement as well. You will get bored, or your body you lose interest and focus. So it's a very true statement. Because that's where she's, I can't remember that bit. Is where she's jetpacking? It's Clarissa, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Or is it Holden? Can't remember. Oh, it has to read it now.
I think it was Holden, yeah.
Holden, yeah. Where he's going, I can't remember. Anyway.
With Miller, I think, or he's thinking about Miller anyway.
But there are lots of those things. I don't tab, but I took a lot of pictures of sections with these kind of very philosophical kind of bits. And you know, as I was going through again thematically, a lot of this is about religion and about people having different religions and different beliefs and different motivations. And I kind of felt that they were intently written in so that you would kind of see it, you know, be nodding your head at some of these observations about human life and about souls and all of that kind of stuff, to go, yes, I believe that. I can identify that and I believe that, just like the characters are doing. And they're being forced and caught between who do you follow, who do you believe, and whose destiny or whose word are you going to trust. I thought there were so many of them. They were so great.
You know, what occurred to me with that too is that the book seems to be talking about challenge to faith and maybe restoration of faith, but for Clarissa's belief, Clarissa believes so much in her father, and yet at the end, you know, she realized her own, you know, guilt. She had these major epiphanies and realizations, and I felt like that was tied together somehow, like Clarissa's experience coming up against her beliefs against reality, just like the faith leaders were bringing their beliefs to the reality of the what do they call that, the ring and the slow zone, you know. So I kind of felt like there was something there, but it wasn't quite. I felt like we needed that spelled out a little more, because Clarissa lost faith and yet found herself in a way, and saw those parts of herself she didn't like. And then so did everyone else, because they were fighting all the way into, you know, this abyss, you know. But as humans, they had to, you know, the fight had to continue. So.
Yeah, it's hard to know where to start from this, because Clarissa is the fanatic. You know, she's the fanatic side of religion. She just follows blindly through emotion that she has to do one thing, and it's only later she questions. But like every little bit of religion and historical religion, all that is kind of probed and asked and answered. So the idea of judgment, you know, Old Testament kind of stuff, you know, the idea of redemption, the idea of faith and of belief and of souls and of existence, it's all kind of in here, and even of rebirth. Like they nearly even paint Holden like a Jesus character in some way, or certainly like a prophet, of somebody that people will follow him just because he says so. And there definitely is that train. Obviously, the Rocinante crew even doubt him at the start, and when Amos and and Alex and Mother going, "There's something not. He's not right. There's something going on here." Whereas blind faith, and again the fanatic part of Nomi to say, "No, this isn't him. This isn't who he is as a person." Even when he's accused of blowing up all the gates and the ships, people are like, "No, this is who he is. This isn't who he is." It's very much in keeping with prominent religious characters over
That's a
history.
good point.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I feel like this book, maybe they needed at this point to step back and give belief systems an introduction into the story, and maybe that's why it moved a little slower. It was more of contemplative in some cases because we had Anna's point of view, who was trying to work this out. And, Anna kind of reminded me of Holden in a certain way because she did have her beliefs that were non-negotiable, even killing. She was trying to save Naomi, but she was not going to pick up a weapon and kill at the same time. And that kind of reminded me of Holden. Not that he does that, but he had his strict beliefs in the beginning, and they started to morph into where he is at the moment. So
Yeah, very much that another paladin character is who Anna was. That kind of righteous, good, always, consistent in what she thinks and what she wants to achieve for people. She wants to believe that there's good inside of everybody. And actually, she's borne out correctly, because if it wasn't for the saving of Clarissa and the teachings of her, then we wouldn't have a good outcome at the end of the book.
I did enjoy Amos a lot more in this one too. I think he's a good good comedic break from the other parts of the story. So he had a few when he when they find out who the person is who planted the device on page 212. He said, "I was thinking I'd have a tough time spacing a blind guy, but turns out I'm just fine with it." I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, I had a couple of I'd written that down as well. Amos's character comes out a lot in this book, especially his personality.
Yeah.
That he has this. It's almost like he's written like the straight guy, but he's so complex. Like, he's such a complex guy getting up, and it's this kind of thing. Like, even his relationship with Anna is really fascinating, because Amos's clarity of thought is, again, so straightforward and similar to Anna's, in that he's always going to do that one thing, but from the total other side. But they sort of have this connection.
Yeah.
And they have this thing with each other where they kind of, right, it's like this nod to hit each other. I see who you are as a person, and you see me. Really cool.
I think Amos actually probably one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite in the series. But I think it showed quite well, considering how like short pages he had, because he wasn't talked about a lot, how big a presence he had in this one. So I think that's I like the fact that although I would say he's not that complex. I don't know, because he's very straightforward, and he has what he wants to do and his rules. I think it's just the fact that they're very different to everyone else's. He has his thing, but they're not what they would call classic morals or that. But they're definitely, that's what he is. He isn't anything else. So,
yeah. There was one part where it seemed like Anna saw more into him than, and I thought that was a way of telling us, the reader, that there might be more to him because Anna was seeing it. But yeah, I agree. I think they connect because they are straightforward with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't hide for who they are from anybody. They're very much what you see is what you get. And it was interesting when the camera crew were on board. That was the bit where Amos came out and they asked him about Baltimore, and Baltimore was the trigger.
Yeah.
And it was like everybody in the ship kind of closed rank around him and say, no, you can't go there. That's not a thing you can do and ask. And step back from that. Ask anything else. Yeah, but not that.
Yeah, it's kind of, you get the impression there's a surface level Amos, and there's a lot more underneath the surface, like an iceberg. Kind of there's more to him, and you want to find out more about him. Brandy said, I like the talk of everyone on the crew of the Rosinante being there because they had things in their past and that they don't share. There's some foreshadowing about some of that being revealed later. Hopefully, yeah.
Again, that feeling of redemption. Like everybody's searching for redemption on that ship in some way, shape, or form. You know, having done something or been something in the past or trying to escape something or anything like that. Yeah, very, very key theme.
I did think about the whole, I know last time we said everyone was trying to find something. I thought the Clarissa or Melba arc was very much her finding herself as well, going through this whole process and then finding out. Well, I guess she almost didn't find out who she was or where she was, but she was at least on that process at this point. She's begun finding out who she actually is after she's been in the shadow of her dad for so long. So yeah, I thought that was obviously a continuing theme that will be probably seen throughout the books.
And also in the shadow of Julie, which is interesting because the whole book so far have been about the shadow of the Julie cast from the very first bit where she introduced the proto-molecule. You know, everybody's kind of living with this kind of fallout from her.
Yeah, that is fascinating because Clarissa actually is very close to the consciousness of Julie, I guess, you know, not realizing it. But there's another interesting angle, I thought, in regard to the character of Anna that I partly didn't find realistic because, you know, she did leave her child. She left her family to go out like to this, you know, pretty high probability of deathly experience. And at the same time, she's a minister and in a same-sex partnership, which for the time, you know, I mean, was written recently, but that is still an ongoing question in some many faiths, you know. So I just thought that was interesting that they added that detail to Anna's character. And just in terms of, you know, the idea of religion confronting new ideas, you know, it was like they were saying, okay, you know, that idea has been settled, you know, the idea of same-sex marriage has been settled, and now, you know, we're moving into this. So I just thought that was an interesting detail, and my cat is right here in front of me. I'm sorry.
A fifth guest.
To talk to.
Amazing.
Cats are always welcome.
So, but I do like how they're trying to include, I guess, certain social details that also bring things into question. Here, Kitty, come here. Jealous.
Yeah.
Did you think that maybe the whole Anna thing was the whole higher calling? Like she felt that she had this calling, and that the calling or had to go and explore this for the faith and for her religion, and that's why she was out there, sort of thing. So it was that kind of religious calling thing.
Yeah. It almost seemed as if she was there because this is a rebirth of humanity in some ways. You know, she going through this gate. It was like, again, this rebirth. Here you go. Here's another religious theme. So many. The Navi becoming being reinvented and reborn as the behemoth and stuff. It's all there. But that she couldn't be there. And it actually spelled out a bit more in the TV show because I went back and watched it all because I wanted to see how they did the themes, etc. And they're not done as well in the TV show, but the plot's written a bit better. But she basically says, you know, she was meant to be there, and if she wasn't there, things would have turned out very differently. And it's that idea of faith, and that you go and follow where your faith leads.
That's a great point, and I'm glad you mentioned the behemoth was out there too, which was
Mhm.
originally meant to be a generational ship. So very interesting how they're bringing that together.
Every time we saw the behemoth, I thought those poor Mormons. You know,
I
they
know.
put so much work into it, and at the last minute, those poor, they just wanted to mind their own business and fly in space and do their
Exactly.
thing. I just felt so bad for them. It We talked about that a couple. I think either last book or the first book about every time they talked to the behemoth, I thought those poor. They're so close.
And they are. They're like they thought they were going to lose it being shot into the sun. They get it brought back, and they're like, maybe this time. And they're like, no, 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 no. Now we need a giant gunship.
Yeah.
That's
So
what
what?
I love about these books, though. I feel like they leave room for that kind of humor, where that kind of gentle humor, where you kind of have to think about it to realize how absurd or funny something is, and because it's bringing all these different threads together, and so that's just an undercurrent of the books that I enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's something that sci-fi probably has a reputation of being like super serious all the time,
Uh-huh.
especially space operas, and there's not room for the lighthearted exploration of character or theme or anything like that. And yeah, that could be
Yeah,
one of the reasons these books are so, to cross the divide between, sci-fi and just general fiction.
right.
Definitely
Yeah.
did. I think you're on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry. I, I forgot I muted myself. I agree with Layla, but I also like that the fact that she was in a same-sex marriage and it was a non-issue for a religious leader. He did a good job of making it a cultural norm.
Absolutely. I think you find that quite a lot in sci-fi, which is one of the reasons, or not always, but that's one of the things people just assume that those things will be more progressive in the future anyway,
Yeah.
and this sort of thing. But it is really nice that exactly that it was just put in with no like hurrah behind it, no discussions. It just was, and that was quite nice. You're right. It's just it just isn't a big deal, which
yeah.
is kind of cool.
And that's really like anything else they're doing with people's names, languages. I keep thinking I have to look up the Belter, the Belter dialect, because I keep thinking I recognize words. I don't know if they're making plays on like Spanish or German, or maybe they are. Maybe they're kind of mixing things together. But
They employed a linguist, I'm pretty sure, to rewrite and create a language. I'm almost certain that's true for the whole dialect. So it certainly does play a part. It's a bit like it reminds me of something like Ulster Scots or something like that. That kind of is very recognizably English, but have certain twists and words that
Mm.
that are definitely their own in their own dialect. And
Definitely. I've also really enjoyed. I love the whole concept of a lot of the language actually being body language, like the shrugs and all, because you wouldn't be able to do that in a spacesuit. You don't get all the
Mhm.
the small subtle things you'd have to do. So a lot of it's about that, and I love that kind of imagining that in my head. Anyway, I think that's a really nice way of bringing that to the language as well.
yeah,
I was quite surprised how much of the New Mexican like the little language and the words that we use here. I was surprised how much they inserted that in the story for some of the characters. That kind of a wink and a nod for those of us who were in this area. But yeah, I was surprised that they were so heavy-handed with it. I enjoyed it, but I can see where people who aren't familiar with the lingo would be a little confused. But it was kind of it's kind of neat for them to kind of give us a little wink. So
yeah.
yeah, I think anytime Miller was on the page was I have to pay attention because something neat's about to happen. Did everyone else feel the same?
Yeah, I still love Miller in this one, even though it's not even Miller. Although I thought
Yeah.
it was really good. I like the way they even introduced it, and it was kind of the not understanding what on earth they're kind of talking about, and as they get closer, he makes more sense, and then the not understanding what he's talking about kind of loops into actually what's happening. And then you find out at the massive spoilers, obviously, that he's the AI essentially that's been left behind. And I just thought that whole like process was actually really interesting. I thought it was really, and I love the discussion getting ahead of myself, getting excited. I love the discussion at the end where he's like, he's only programmed to do so much, so he had to do this whole process, and he can't change from what he's been programmed to do, and describes himself as the Rocinante. And I thought that little process was quite fun as well. So yeah, Miller's great.
Yeah, and I see him, Miller, as becoming kind of a mentor to James, because James, he needs a guide. So he's kind of like a spirit guide in a strange way, because here's Holden going into really the unknown, and what am I trying to say? Miller is his guide, and they couldn't have saved everyone else without Miller. So there is, I think there's a spiritual aspect to that as well, within the book. I mean, I'm not necessarily seeing it spiritually, but I think that is another extension of the theme of the book, that going into the unknown, you need a guide. So yeah.
Yep, it's interesting because the whole concept of the ring, and this book being very much about spirituality and religion, the ring's a challenge to the idea of God, of the higher power, because obviously something bigger than humanity created the ring, and it's obviously not God. So you've got these religious leaders on board, etc., and yet Miller is created sort of like I wrote down. He's sort of created in God's image to come and speak to Holden, and somebody that he would recognize and that he would interface with, in much the same way as the biblical stories are told, in that he couldn't appear as an alien or the grey kind of thing. It had to be somebody to recognize and somebody that he would trust in order to guide him and show him how to way, and for him to trust him enough to say, if I tell you to do this, do it,
Right. And it's interesting you say that this new entity is, like bigger than humans, and but we find out that there's something even bigger than that's out there that destroyed, the makers of the ring. So very interesting. And I did look up the title because I'm starting to get a sense of what they're about here. And so this one, I'm not sure I pronounce it right, but Abaddon's Gate. And Chris, did you look up the meaning?
I did too. Yes, I did. Yeah. I mean, before I started the book, I had a fair idea what it possibly could be. I think this one's a lot more on the nose than some of the other ones.
So, like, did you get a hell or an abyss?
Yeah. So this is pretty much the ring is the gate of hell, potentially. Like it is, they cross the threshold and they could be sinking into damnation or something like that. Yeah.
You had that discussion in the book as well, didn't you? You had the whole, was it when they have the deceleration bit and she comes out and has a whole discussion about how how it will be in hell and everything else and those kind of points and pieces. And then she also discusses how people would link it to being bigger than God, but she thinks that God's bigger than that almost, and how she have to kind of refocus to kind of bring that to new places and things. So yeah, they definitely went in heavy with all of the philosophical discussions and all those kind of things for that.
So
there's a bit that...
Oh, go ahead.
Because there's just a bit in the book where Soledad, who worked with Melba and Ryan and Stanley on the thing, she had made the point that the ring actually comes from Eros, and because of all the people that died in Eros, does that mean all the souls make up the ring?
Yes, yeah.
Right, and I had written it down at the time because I'm bound to forget that, completely forgot it. But again, this really philosophical discussion about, is this a living thing, this ring? Because it obviously is all the souls that are on the station.
Oh, that's good. That's great.
Yeah, good catch.
And Robin, I was just going to follow up to say you've just made me realize too that all of the faith leaders so they came to the gates of hell then.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That's right.
Interesting. So and everybody there, well, not everybody, but Clarissa definitely had her moment. Anna had her moment. Some of the others, Cortez,
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
he he failed his test, as I recall. Yeah, yeah. So, but then again too. So Carlos, who had spaced the guy in the beginning, he redeemed himself then by saving the world. Okay, well, it's starting to make a little more sense now.
Yeah, I catch that.
So going back to kind of, I guess, the fact that the ring is made of Eros, what did you guys think because we've come from not knowing very much about the protomolecule and assuming a lot of things around it and us turning it into a weapon, to finding out that actually it's meant to be this whole other thing for making a gate and linking up to all these other areas and things. What did you kind of think about that? Because I really enjoyed the fact that we got that much more information, because I was really struggling in the other books about why on earth this had been sent. Although it was discussed it was a weapon and everything else, it didn't really make a lot of sense in my brain. So I kind of, at least I know why it had a purpose. I was happier that I understood why it had been sent, if you mean previously. But I don't know if you guys preferred it before, or if you liked that, or it didn't make any sense to you.
I thought I'd seen the TV series, and actually this series, the TV series, I wanted to read the book again because I wanted to go back over this, because this bit I didn't totally get the first time I watched the TV series about actually the role of the protomolecule and actually what actually was the threat of the gate, and I got it much better the second time. There's no doubt about it that the fact that they were creating its purpose was not to attack and destroy, but to open up a gateway to somewhere else for somebody to come and invade potentially, and take over. So, and that being its only real purpose is as a building block, essentially was really enlightening. Yeah.
I think in the TV series, I think I completely. It was just suddenly there was a gate. There wasn't. They didn't. I don't think they linked it as well as they did in the book by it actually just building it. So yeah, I think I had a little bit of confusion about that until I reread this one recently.
Yeah, because the bit where Hogan has the visions within the sphere is just flashes in the TV series. There's no explanation, and you're sort of supposed to fill it in. Whereas here, we obviously get what it means, and Hogan explains it afterwards to Miller and the other people, saying this is what I seen, and so you get a better sense of what he did see then. Whereas TV series, it's very much left open ended.
Yeah, I love the TV series. The one thing I was disappointed with it, now that I know more about the protomolecule, is I think as big as the protomolecule was in the series, I feel like it was underserved in the series as a whole. I think there's so much more that I've learned about the protomolecule in the books that I just didn't get, and the rings too. I got the nuts and bolts, but it wasn't as impactful as it is in the book.
Yeah. In the show, I focused more. I think I was more engaged with the characters versus what was happening with the protomolecule and those broader themes. And so reading has kind of brought a new perspective to me. And I still think, even though they've figured out how to work with the slow zone or, this ring, I still think there's the potential for it to be, the gates of hell, because nothing will ever be the same now. People will be, positioning themselves on how are we going to engage with this, and so either way, society will change. That's good.
Yeah.
I believe there is.
Is there one ring to rule them all? Yeah, could be.
Yeah. It reminded me the conclusion of it of, and I don't expect anybody to have seen it, but Babylon 5, it's very thematically similar to the idea in Babylon 5, the shadows and all of that kind of stuff that happened in there. So if anybody likes this kind of theme, there's a whole
Yeah.
I'd say 5 series of Babylon 4, but only watch the first 4. And they're doing a remake of it as well, which is quite good. But yeah, it's very thematically similar to that kind of existential threat of ancient civilizations and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I have a question. Do you think there's a horror element to this in terms of like this existential threat? Kind of an undercurrent of, I don't know, something
sort
moving. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like something under the bed, Layla. You know what I mean? Every time you look, there's nothing there, and yet somebody keeps on telling you there might be something there, though. You know, and if there's something there, we're in big trouble. You know, you're not going to sleep for a long, long time.
Yeah, I would agree to that for sure. Because before it was kind of like you didn't know what the protomolecule was and how it was going to affect you, and now you're not sure if like something terribly vast and huge is going to destroy the whole solar system. And it's that kind of like, is it, isn't it? Do we explore? Do we not? Kind of thing. So yeah, an undercurrent maybe. I don't know about horror. But I guess that's quite a general, like, wide term. So yes, I think maybe. Sure.
Leviathan Wakes definitely had people turn to sludge and zombies. So I mean, there definitely wasn't a horror element there for sure.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I think that's what I'm getting at, because Miller, Miller is not really Miller. And I think, wasn't it within when Holden was in the center of the ring, they were essentially turning the Marines that got killed into paste.
Oh yeah.
And I just feel like there's potential for more, gore, I guess, and fearsome things that could happen as molecules are rearranged, So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree as well, because they also touching on that, I guess, the descriptions of Miller when like he was talking to Holden, and you had that kind of whole description about Miller had black lips and he was essentially like a almost corpse-esque, and then got less so. So that was really unsettling, because you didn't, again, it was that whole unknown, what on earth is happening here, where does it link in, and everything else. So yeah, I guess that also links into that kind of just those little themes they put in there to make you kind of on edge, and it's a bit weird.
Because I guess I'm saying it could be more. I don't think that wasn't really emphasized in the adaptation in the show. But when you actually read it and you consider, what horrific things have been done, what happened to Julie, what happened to the whole, what was it, Eros? And, I think there's some great potential there for it to be much more intense.
Like when she put Ren in a toolbox, you mean? I was like, oh, lovely.
He literally snapped them apart, didn't even cut them up. He just snapped them in bits so they'd be fit in. Oh,
right.
Put them in a toolbox. That was lovely.
Her friend.
Yeah, that was not good. Tammy says, Ty Frank explained that every book has a different overall style. This one was a haunted house. About the Leviathan Weeks was a detective noir. Next one was kind of a western.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd heard about the different styles. I think the second one was meant to be more of a spy novel, wasn't it? Because I know they're trying to be a little bit more distinctive, but I didn't know what this one was meant to be. So I'll look out for the western themes in the next one.
Yeah, I can see that even from the TV show. But back in the horror point, I had made this note: for all the dangers of space, the ring, the proto-molecule, everything there, the real threat still came from other men. Was that man's inhumanity, the man was really what was going to end the world here. It wasn't actually any of those external factors. So the most dangerous thing is just other people.
Definitely.
Yeah. The Julie going out and kind of kind of pulling the strings. That's when it felt more of a horror, because it wasn't just Miller and Holden. It was more. There was more to it than just that connection. They can go out and do other things too, and plot against certain people. I thought that was really neat. That it was Julie, not her sister,
Hmm.
or what used to be Julie, I guess.
Yeah.
There's Julie who
Well,
used to be Julie, and Miller who used to be Miller, and yeah, there's quite again that reborn thing. Even Melba becoming Clarissa in the book. She starts off as
right.
Melba and gets reborn as Clarissa throughout the book.
Did you guys think there was enough discussion about the station in the ring? I thought that was really underdone. There wasn't much description about it, and you had one little quick trip through some furry walls, and then that was it. There
I
was
was
no
really
other.
disappointed it wasn't the climax of the book.
Hmm.
When
Right.
it was about halfway through, we got there, and I went, "This is too early, surely." Yeah, it's kind of maybe that's why I didn't like it. I mean, the battles at the end went on for like a good third of the book. It was too long. It was too
Mhm.
protracted. It was just that's one of the reasons I thought it was such a mess. It wasn't like there was stakes. It was just like it just kept going and going and going and going, and lots of different factions. And one was in engineering, and one was broadcasting, and then the bridge, and it was all very discombobulated. I think the whole thing. But yes, the sphere in the center was the most interesting thing in the entire book, and the bits that we got were cool, but it could have been so much more.
Yeah, I just think it was underplayed. You're right. They did very much focus much more what's happening on the ships rather than and I was like, this is a cool space station. Which, good. I did like the end. I did like the coup though at the end. I thought that was, although obvious because they made it blatantly obvious throughout when it was coming up, but I did like it. I thought that was a nice double flip or whatever. That was quite a fun thing.
Mhm.
It was good, but Iceford is such a Weasley nothing character in the book. Like they very purposely in the TV show rewrote him as somebody of strength that people would follow, given the right circumstances. And I think it, it was very hard to believe that Iceford could turn nearly a whole crew and bring them with him at the end. A bit
Mhm.
like when they were in the sphere. I found it very hard that the Marines were able to follow Holden and Miller so easily. And given all the secret corridors and the layout of the sphere that was set up for Holden to come in, it was like one of those classic things of like somebody chasing them through, like in the Goonies. Even
Yeah.
they knock down all the bridges. They everything falls apart, and yet every time they turn around, they're right there. How did they get there?
True. I think they did say that they did try and push back on that by saying that he was a respected captain before. So I think they did try and put a little bit in about how he would be followed. He has had a good service history. But you're right, they didn't. I think they had to put that in because he was written not very well as the character, so it was unbelievable.
His XO didn't really. The XO was the one. Pa was the one with the part. Whatever happened, Pa?
She lived. She definitely lived because they had a whole discussion at the end, didn't they?
Oh, did they?
I think
There was a bit for them where they went, we don't even know if Pa's alive. That's about the last thing that I remember them discussing. But yeah, the XO Pa didn't really believe in him. Obviously, Bull thought he should have been in charge of the whole operation to start off with. And so if they're the next two most prominent members, and you've got, I don't know. Iceford was a weasel though in the end. I suppose that he had to kind of be the fall guy and easily disposable or otherwise, so you didn't kind of care what happened to him.
and they needed that character to juxtapose against the heroic characters, but I also feel like in their in this whole story they're kind of saying that people are good enough in the stable times, but when you really get down to it and you really need somebody to be a leader, not everybody's a leader. Some people are good managers. A good manager of a ship is not necessarily a leader. And so I think I like that they show that. I do feel like the end of the book, as we've been saying, there are incomplete parts. There are. So
I agree, and I think also there was quite. I think the whole discussion with Bull and who was in charge and everything else showed that a lot of it was more political and figureheading than
Yeah.
them actually meant to be in a place of power during a time of crisis. Like they were just meant to be outside the ring, showing up, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there was a thing about the fact that it was all just for show rather than actually for doing anything.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So the discussion that Miller has with Holden, I thought was really great. I think, whenever Miller is on the pages, it's going to be interesting.
Mhm.
But I did like that. I think they mentioned for humans, whenever there's a door that's closed, we want to open it. We want to know what's on the other side of it. I think it was true. I mean, we can't help ourselves.
Curiosity.
Yeah.
And obviously leads on to where the show can go next, because we basically have all these doors to go through. Could lead anywhere.
And the ring is the greatest door, so
The one ring to rule them all, as has been said. Yeah.
it's all connected. It's all connected.
Yeah, it is indeed.
Yeah.
But
I do
interesting
feel like
questions.
some of this may be setting up, as someone mentioned before, I think some of this may even be foreshadowing for things that come later that we just don't realize yet, in a more subtle way, that maybe they didn't even put into the show, but may, take on more significance, a few books from now. So.
It's the nice part about reading a multi-part story, because each of them are sort of self-contained, tell their own story, but everyone just adds like another couple of not even one layer, but a couple of layers on top of things that are happening within the world. The interconnected politics. Then you've got the things that are outside their control, the unknown, and like I don't know how everybody else feels. I do think one of the key problems with this is we only had one common character with any of the previous books. Like we only had Holden as far as perspective went. To go through. And I think that's one of the reasons that the first half of the book is mostly about Bull and Melba. Like Holden's in it very, very infrequently at the start, and we don't have any connection with those characters to start off with, really, in any ways. And you're like, but one's a bad guy. It makes it kind of tough to read.
No, I fully agree with that. I think it took me a while to, again, maybe why it felt, again, so slow is because there's a lot of introductions to the characters, setting up, getting to a point where you understand what their motivations are and why they're here. And yeah, it was just kind of like, and the Rocinante story about how they get to was a bit convoluted, and it was kind of like, it wasn't the most interesting part of the book at that time. So you're right, I think it was, I don't know if it would be better with more of the characters or whether maybe they put like a character that was a side character before in, it would have moved it along a bit better and you would have connected with it more. But I don't know. I don't actually know if you see any of these different characters again. I assume we see Clarissa or Melba again because you're doing the TV show. That's an assumption. I don't know if you will. And I'm not sure about Anna at all. I'm not sure if she was just in it for this one book or you see her further as well. So.
Or her friend, the
Tilly.
Tilly.
I liked Tilly. She was great. That's because again, she's someone who knows who she is. Like she is her. She's not anything but that. So I thought she was great. And I think she, obviously, I think it was to not soften Anna, but to bring some, not make her so, not likable, but she's evangelical. She's very what she is. Right. So I guess that she was brought in to add a little bit more, not humanity, but humor and soul into it a little bit.
And nice that they could be friends. They are very much polar opposites, Tilly and Anna. Yet there's still a connection between them. Anna appreciates her nature.
The buying at the end though, I thought was a bit much. I was like, really?
Like, how do you resolve this problem about the Mars wanting the Rocinante? You just bought it.
Yeah.
That was weak.
I mean, it's great that it's solved and it's no shit again.
Yeah. It was a weak part of the book to begin with at the start because they've been running around the galaxy for years. It seems like, and now all of a sudden it's a problem. But I suppose it is a decent point to kind of compare the TV series, what they did with the adaptation, compared to it. So Anna's character was actually in it before the story because she helped Avasarala win an election in the previous part of the book. Bull's not in the TV series at all.
No,
At this part, anybody, he does appear in the TV series, but he's Fred Johnson's right hand man for most of the time. They use a different character, which I don't want to say who it is, but who takes on the role of Bull and is in the mech suit, etc. at the end. And Bobby is on the Mars ship in the TV series, so to give that connective tissue from people that you know beforehand being in. So rather than an unnamed Mars ship who goes to get Holden, Bobby's part of that force that goes to collect Holden off the ring, etc. So they kind of make it work a bit more like that, but also all the things that you're suggesting they could have done. I think they went back and looked at it and went, "Yeah, I think we're going to have to."
Yeah, because I think they even mentioned it in the book, don't they? They're like, "Oh, I wish Bobby was here," or
Yes,
"I
that's
wish
right.
Bobby was one of them." And obviously, yeah, that would have been like. But then, would it have been too much if she had been? Would you have just been like, "Well, that's far too easy," the fact that she was there? So
Yeah, and in the TV series, it was a bit ridiculous. Are there only like 10 Martian people in the world?
exactly.
Well, I did have that thought about Tilly and Clarissa because of all places, two of these people that know each other show up, but Tilly knows Claire, So that was a convenient, technique as well to help get some information into the story, but it's fun too. I mean, that's what I kind of like, in this story. It's like anybody can show up. You've got everybody, coming together. But who would imagine that out there at the end of the universe or the galaxy, these two people who know each other would randomly, appear. So.
But there's a little discussion of that actually in the TV series because they go, where fate, destiny, and coincidence align. None of those things are fate, destiny, and coincidence. There's something along the lines that they say it was just meant to be. It was designed to be that way, that those people were in the same place at the same time. It's the nature of the world that in order for these events to happen, those people would be in the same place, etc. And that kind of goes along with the influence of God and faith and all of those things that are in there as well.
You know what? We recently I had a conversation about that in regard to Lord of the Rings and the Rings of Power. How Galadriel jumps into the water and just happens to meet all these people out there in the middle. I don't know if you all have seen it, but just it was good synchronicity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so maybe hand of fate guiding the characters. Yeah.
Yeah, but it did give a nice resolution to the fact that when they were identifying who the bomber was, they all thought it was Julie, and it nearly took the story down a whole other direction of the protomolecule and manipulating everything else. And it's funny how everybody else was happy to believe, oh, Julie doing it is the protomolecule influencing what's going to happen. Yet when Holden is saying he's picking the Miller, they're like, well, he's off his head. That can't possibly, even though they're kind of the same thing. Because there was a manifestation of Julie and they knew what Julie was, but there was one person holding. They were like, "No, that's ridiculous. He's lost his mind."
Mm-hmm.
Bernie, so they also got attached to the Avasarala and Bobby Draper when their absence in this book was kind of hard for me. Yeah, I did miss them in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really hope. I again, assumption from the TV show that they definitely do come back, but you never know when that's going to be. So it'd be interesting to see who pops up in the next book. Actually, so
I miss Avasarala's foul mouth a lot in this book.
she's such a good character. She's such a good character.
Reads so well. It's such
Yeah.
effective writing. Dialogue, yeah.
Yeah, really good stuff. Yeah, I wonder if watching the TV show was a good decision or a bad decision, because you kind of have expectations now when you read it. So, but it is interesting to see how the adaptation changed the story, with the different directions they went with it for the adaptation. Robyn, this was a reread for you, right? Because you've read the first 4 books or the first 5?
I think I I was thinking that. I'm not sure. I think it may have just been 4. Looking back at it now and how much thing, I think I'd only got up to book 4. So yeah. So this one was a reread for sure, but we'll see. So next one, I should remember. Maybe. It's a long time ago.
Yeah, with the ship, I thought it was, I thought it was a little silly with Anna buying the ship, and at the end, but you kind of forgive it for for goofy things like that. You kind of go to pass because it's just that kind of story. And at first, it was a little annoying that these things happen really conveniently for just to move the story along. But at the end, it's just like, okay, sure, whatever. Like let's, I'll accept it. Let's just see what happens next, kind of thing. So. Yeah, that's one of those
like those conversations I have with my wife when we're watching something, and she goes, "Can you believe he did that to her?" And I went, "In a fictional TV show, sure, anything's possible."
I think and I think as much as there are deep themes and deep questions as well, I would say that the books aren't that deep sort of thing. Like there are themes and things throughout it, but they are kind of like action novels as such. So I'm pretty forgiving when it comes to this, as long as it's entertaining in the book. I'm quite forgiving to plot holes or jumps about the place. Oddly, okay.
I was going to say they're quite pulpy, the books. I find for like supposedly a big space opera or serious space opera, they're reading very pulpy, and one is a detective noir to set it up, so it sort of sets up that world anyway. But
I was going to say one of my gripes was just the whole Clarissa's. Why would you get? You've got all the money in the world. Why would you get that as your secret power? Like she could have got a very cool weapon that would be. She could have got anything, but she effectively got something that has such a bad drop off afterwards that it's ineffective most of the times. And that was probably my kind of like the one I had the most issue with. I think I was like, you could have had anything. And I know you can only have what's in the realms of the world, but I never really enjoyed her gland's superpower that she ends up with. I just thought it was essentially useless.
Yeah, I agree. I wondered that myself, if she had everything at her fingertips, and chose that. So,
I didn't really buy her redemptive arc either. I mean, she went from being an absolute psychopathic killer to being stunned with a taser to going, do you know what? James Holden's not so bad.
Actually, I met him in person now. Right.
They always seem nice. I know it nearly choked her to death, and she's got really bad injuries every time I see her. And it did smash that guy in a toolbox and all the rest of it. But
that's what I was saying. I almost felt like we were going to see them forgive her at the end, just because it just seemed so. There's just something off about it. Yeah.
Well, even the fact that they're going to bring her back to Luna, but we're not going to be alone. We're going to keep you in the ship for a while, just because you're all right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't. I don't know.
I kind of thought they were going with the religious themes of forgiveness. They forgave her and brought her into the fold, but it seemed a little quick. I don't know. It seemed a little. There wasn't enough development.
I even struggled with Anna's accepting it, and I know that she is meant to be like the whole religion forgiveness, blah blah blah. But she was so quick to forgive and be like, actually, there's a lot more going on here. But I'm like, when you've seen, I mean, she blew up a whole ship.
Right.
It wasn't a small thing that she's done. It wasn't she planned to do something. Yeah. She did it.
It was premeditated. It wasn't an impulsive thing. It was
and then they were worried how she's going to, if she's going to be killed or if she's going to. And I was just like, I just don't know if that would ever come into discussion after that. But
interestingly, in the TV show, Anna's character, that's the moment she does drop when she sees Clarissa in the cell, is that she actually is conflicted about whether she should die straight away or otherwise, which is a lot more believable. It's just she talks herself around in it to say, like, no, there's got to be something better, but she's struggling with it. She's struggling with her faith. where you don't see that her struggling with her faith at any stage whatsoever. You know, she's very, very clear about seems to have it all figured out.
And she vouches for her too pretty quickly.
Yes,
and she,
yeah.
she goes to bat. She. I thought that was. It would have been more interesting if there was a little bit more time for that to develop and more time for them together. I think that would have been more impactful. But one of those things.
It's because they spent half the book getting there, so they ran out elsewhere.
What this book did not need was another 100 pages.
Yeah. And to Chris's point, I think the battle at the end. I think sometimes, authors or writers try to make battles last longer, to make it seem more significant. But I think the shorter battles, for me anyway, tend to be more memorable and significant when it's not so drawn out. I think that's. But I think the battle lasts for a long time, and it was just like, okay, when is this going to end? So I'm not sure how you all thought about it.
I thought, well, first I did have a little confusion about which ship they were on. But then also, and I love this, but, for our favorite crew to like get out of sick bay. I mean, they see all these people running around. Oh, I think we'll get out of the sick bay and just go join the fight, I mean, that's what we want them to do, but it was kind of funny. It is kind of funny to think about too. So.
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard to watch them go from Naomi's got a broken arm, she's carrying in a sling. Amos can't really walk. Alex is struggling to walk. Holden's not doing so good. Bill is paralyzed because his spine's broken. But they're going to take on the world, all of them, and it's kind of they gloss over it for chapters upon chapters that they're struggling. Oh, I don't know.
I think I don't know. As I said, I kind of liked the idea of the queue and the whole splitting it. But you're right. I think there was a lot of it that it was too lengthy, and then it was suddenly like, oh, they're doing well. Oh no, they're not doing well. Oh, they're doing this. Oh no, they're not doing that. And also, I actually found some of it hard to understand. Like when they shut off I had to go back and reread it because I was like, I don't actually understand what just happened there. So I had to go back and go, okay, they've done that. And that's what that means. And when they were going through the lifts, it got very confusing about how she killed them. I was like, where's that lift come from? So I feel like, that was a bit convoluted at the end, definitely for the tail end of the fight. The initial one where they kind of go into engineering fine and dandy, but then being chased by the four. I
couldn't work out the geography. Sometimes we're like, you got to get out of it. Naomi. Well, where are they coming from? There's only one door in and out, so where are they going?
Yeah.
Where are they hiding? If she's going to get out and they're coming through the door, sure, she'll have to run past them. I don't know. I was like, yeah.
But I think it did. I read a couple of reviews where people again hadn't. I got a bit confused at the end about what happened in the main room when the lights went out and who got rid of who and who got tasered. So I think a lot of people struggled with that, and there's just too much going on in short sentences. So I think you did need to read it carefully to be able to keep up.
Yeah, and Robyn, to your point earlier, I think putting more attention on the station because they reference the station so much and it's such a big part of the story that you don't really know much about it. I think that could have been better spent. Tell us about that. But
does anybody buy the fact that the station would have just went? They dropped all the reactors out. They're no longer a threat, even though everything up to that point said, and that they would just keep the doors open. That's it sorted now. You're all right. You passed your check. You're good. I don't know. Again, it felt a bit easy rather than.
It's alien technology. Who are we to know?
Well, that's very true, Robyn. Indeed.
I guess the fact that the miller was there to kind of try and poke it and to guide it made it somewhat believable to me, and resolvable, I guess, because he was there to press the correct buttons and get it sorted. But
Brandon says in the show it takes Naomi a lot longer to forgive Clarissa, but in the book she's cracking jokes with her about being happy for another woman on board. It wasn't as believable.
I agree. like I said, I kept waiting for them to just hire her onto the Rocinante. I mean, uh, and I didn't want to be feeling that at that point.
Yeah, it was far too soon to be all cozy, and her to feel all like, oh, it's great, I've got friends again. It was like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
The boat portion especially, I kept reading his parts, and it's like, isn't he on his deathbed? Like, how is he doing all this stuff? Like, I had to go back and read it, and okay, yeah, he is really injured. How is he doing all this stuff? And he was like, he's pretty effective for being someone about to die.
Not just you can decide not to go into a medically induced coma, but you'll kill yourself, and yet they seem to do more and more ridiculous things just because he's got a mech suit.
Yeah, once he kept denying treatment, you kind of knew, okay, he's not going to make it. He's in a
Yeah. I
he has a
thought
red shirt on.
I did think that was their way too of trying to say, he's injured, but he still has something to contribute, and this something that people do in real life live with, that you might be injured, but you still have a lot to contribute to the world. But yeah, but being in the middle of, what they were in, it did stretch the boundaries sometimes. And didn't they finagle something where he could maneuver, where he could move? Didn't they give him some kind of electronic suit? Oh, the suit. I think you meant that. Yeah.
Yeah. But that they seem to be able to leap over things and skulk down corridors if he just kept to the right of the corridor and stuff. I was like, but it's a big hulking suit. Like,
Yeah.
or at least a bottom part for his legs. I don't know. He was a Superman. That's really what it was. They put him in a mech suit and he became Superman, even though his spine was broken. He'd lungs full of, he'd got pneumonia, but he didn't get tired. And
That's what I mean. That was just like the sick bay situation. I mean, it did all get kind of funny and absurd toward the end.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Yeah, I was the same. Like, I've read it in this book so much for an hour and a bit, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think we're all in the same. You just kind of forgive certain things just because it's the kind of story.
Yeah. When you're involved with characters, I kind of come to the point where, like, I like these characters and like this world enough that maybe if they just made cups of tea and coffee and had toast for 5 or 6 chapters, I'd be okay with it. Just be with them and enjoy them.
Right.
That'll be okay.
This is a little slow in this section, but that coffee sounds great.
A new blend.
And Holden loves his coffee, so
He does.
Yeah. And they did have a whole discussion about coffee, didn't they? When he was talking to the interviewer, in fact.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. What do you all think about that? About those sections where they kind of talk about really, it's not really too relevant to the story. Do you appreciate those sections, or how do you all feel about that?
I do like knowing details about what characters, what the characters enjoy, what they don't like. I think they can be woven into a bigger story at times, but I do think it gives us, it helps us know the character. So I do appreciate that. I think it can go on for too long. I think this book does it pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So.
No, I'm the same. I love it. I think it's because it gives you just small interactions in of the characters in their world or between the characters, give you so much information about that world and about what's usual and what people do in that. And that's what I'm all about. And I think especially if it's not overdone. You don't want chapters and chapters, but when maybe it's an introduction to a section or an introduction or an exit to a bit, I think it helps you visualize stuff as well. So it shows you kind of what it looks like to be there as well. So I'm all about those bits and pieces.
Yeah, and while I often and have done rather on the kind of Naomi Holden relationship, I think they're very believable as a family, unit, all of them, because of those interactions and the way that they can just talk about coffee, or even the fact that they cook each other and they take it in turns to make something special. All of that kind of stuff
So
really,
cute.
really builds into that. Yeah, it does. And even when
Mm.
somebody from the outside comes with them, they're involved, and you get the sense that it is a family ship, even though it's a big ship for 4 people. So, like both of you, I really enjoy those sections. Those are the bits that kind of can break up some of the other things that are happening in the world at the time.
Yeah, I think action's good. I love action. I love all the running out, but it's just those like rest breaks of just are kind of needed, I think, as well.
Brandy said, I like those kind of conversations. I can identify with the coffee thing as a fellow addict.
Me too. I found myself worrying about Holden and his coffee. So I relate to what Brandy's saying. Is he getting coffee while he's in the middle of this?
I would like to see. I was just going to say, I had kind of like an exploration somewhere in the book of the effects of coffee and caffeine levels and all that kind of stuff in zero G environments. Does that really make a difference? Just can you take an espresso, for instance, or is espresso banned in space?
That's a great point. I like it. Is it Amos that makes the garlic noodles or some kind of garlic sauce with noodles? I can't.
Yes.
I think it is.
I think it was Amos, yeah.
Have to try that.
You'd have like an appendix with recipes in the back.
Mind you, the amount of books or series that do have a recipe book afterwards, like Game of Thrones is a classic one, isn't it?
Right.
Food of Game of Thrones in a cookbook because it's described so well. So yeah, it's not unusual.
It's a great idea for a YouTube video as well. The Expanse's garlic and merchant noodles. Cook along.
Cook along, yeah. That's a good idea. So it sounds like we're all pretty positive on this one. What does everyone think?
Yeah, for all the criticisms, I really enjoyed the thematic stuff in the book, and I wrote down a lot more than I usually do about books as I'm going through. With it being a tabber, I do kind of take pictures and I do kind of take little bits out so I don't forget them. And it's the thematic stuff that I kind of go, yeah, okay, that's cool. That's really interesting how they tried to like that or tried to make something out of that. So yeah, still well on board. Enjoying it a lot.
I'm definitely enjoying it. And something I've noticed, because I'm listening on Audible, I have it on Kindle and Audible. So sometimes I read, but mostly I listen. And there is kind of a rhythm to the way the person reads it. And so I noticed that the way it's written, like they'll introduce a character and then they'll say a little bit of background about the character, such as, last Tuesday, this person did this, and now they're thinking about this. And so there's kind of a rhythm that has developed for me as a listener. And I really liked it. And maybe that's why, there were some longer parts in this book, but I think listening helped me get through those two. And so overall, I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it a good narrator? Is it a good narrator for the audiobook?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
And the Belter dialect, they read very well, which is interesting.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out because I'm always very picky on my audiobooks of the narrators. Just good. Yeah, I might pick up one. I am loving it still. I think it's great. I said before, I think this is the book that I have most wanted to underline things or go back and reread things. It was just fun. The questions. I'm not particularly religious, but I did find all the religious stuff quite interesting, and the questions they were asking and the whys of what people were there for was really fascinating to me. And I'm just getting really excited to get to a point where I'm going to pick up the new books. So yeah, I'm all still in.
Nice. Brenda says, I agree with Layla. I'm also listening, and it is quite good. The narrator, I forget who did The Dark Tower, the first few books, but his voice reminded me a lot of that narrator. I forget his name. I think he's pretty well known, but yeah, the narrator did a good job.
Jefferson Mays is the guy that does the Expanse books.
Oh,
whether it's the same person or not.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to go on. You know, you can listen to the sample. I'll be like, do I want this?
You do it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, especially for long run series. Like I've done most of the Dresden Files audiobooks, and for the first 2 or 3 books, I hated the narration. I hated James Martin's narration. And then at a certain point, you're like, I don't even want to read the paper copies anymore. I think I'd be missing so much from not having this narration and having this character in. You know, it can just kind of flip very quickly.
I had the opposite issue with the Bosch series. I was into audiobook and I absolutely adored the narrator. And then at book 5, they put some new person in and I hate it. I cannot stand the new narrator. So it's really upsetting when they switch narrators through a series.
But now Titus Welliver's going back and doing a lot of them as well. So
Oh, he's great. So I'm very pleased
it's
to
so
keep
good.
him up.
Nice. Cool. So we're all still on board for book 4,
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Very
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, Robyn, where can people find you if they want to find you and your channel? Where can they connect with you?
Oh, yeah. On YouTube, Bookends and Biscuits, and on Twitter as well, the same Twitter handle as well.
Awesome. And Layla?
Right now, Twitter at lgoshi on Twitter, and hopefully have more soon.
Yeah, we're still waiting for that announcement.
I
so.
know
Yeah.
so much is going on. So.
Yeah. And Chris?
Yeah, you can get me on YouTube at Chris Mohan, Mohan, just my name, and on Twitter at 7 o'clock Shadow.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for all of you we're all over the world. That's what makes it so special is we're all over the world and we meet up to talk about this series. It makes it so much fun. So, and thanks everyone in the comment section and the chat for hanging out with us and talking about this book. So really appreciate it. Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. We'll see you next. We don't have a date yet, but we'll announce it soon on the next book. I'm sure we'll talk about it right after this stream, as we normally do. But we'll be back next month sometime to talk book 4. So hope to see you back then.